Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Little Wins podcast, season 3, appropriately titled WTF for Wow, That's Fantastic. Today, we get to hear the fantastic story of my new best friend, Bob Shea. Bob Shea is the founding director of Devices for the Disabled and a board member of Rainbow Hospice. In 2002, Bob was stricken with a neurological disease, Guillain-Barre. He was rendered quadriplegic. And what I found extremely fantastic about your story, Bob, is that it was truly through that diagnosis and your overcoming of it that it was the impetus for all the things that you do for others.
Yes, I have a pet expression, life breaks you or breaks you open. And the book Man's Search for Meaning, which was written by Viktor Frankl 4 months after he got out of the concentration camp. And obviously answering the question, how did you survive? And he said, to live is to experience pain. To survive is finding meaning and purpose in the pain. And so that's where my life has been since I got my disease.
Meaning and purpose through the pain. Yes. When we first met, just for the folks, and they don't know about us, Bob, but you called me on Friday, and a place in my day, in my life's timeline, where I was just sort of like, wow, like what is going on? Everything feels just so like there was just a lot going on that day. And when you called me, I was able to pick up, which is also miraculous with all of my kids and everything going on a Friday. We had the most amazing conversation about just being humans in a life experience at the exact moment that I personally needed to hear your story and that purpose through your pain, and how we both have found, purpose and all of the commonalities within that. It was just so rad. So I'm really excited that you're open to sharing today.
Sure.
I think it's best if we start, because not everybody has heard of Guillain-Barre. And also, folks, I kept saying it wrong when Bob and I were first talking. It's, two French guys. That's how Bob makes it simple. Guillain-Barre. It's a syndrome. And from my understanding, which is limited, I am not a doctor, but I am not a stranger to the terms. It's a super complex autoimmune disease that leads to general paralysis. And I think this is generally speaking, right?
Yes, yes.
It's the most common cause, and I think this is why everyone should hear this. It's the most common cause of acute flaccid neuromuscular paralysis worldwide.
It's yes, it's what is referred to as a demyelinating disease. It's a first cousin of MS, and I had never heard of it till I got it.
And this is another reason why these things are so important to share, because we always talk about it in other podcasts too, like early detection, knowing the signs, the symptoms, knowing what to look out for. And I don't want people ever to feel afraid when they hear these things. I want them to be empowered by having this information, so that just in case, like my kids call it, a just in quesadilla,
Yeah.
just in quesadilla, you know what to do and who to see. So what are the signs and symptoms?
Well, like all autoimmune diseases, they're kind of a mystery. They really don't have a good understanding. About 50% of the cases are preceded by a bacterial or viral infection. My own feeling is, if it doesn't explain all of it, it doesn't explain any of it. I had no infection before I got it. I ran 4 miles at lunch the day before. And I woke up the next day and my hands were tingling like pins and needles, but more intense. But I had to get to work, so I wasn't thinking too much about it. And then about a half hour before lunch, my feet started to tingle. And I thought, well, I'll just go for a good run. That'll blow it out. And a voice in my head said, don't go. So I didn't. And as I was leaving, it suddenly occurred to me, I think I'm walking funny. And when I got home, halfway up the stairs, I realized I was using my hands on the banisters to get up the stairs. And it was the first time I got concerned. I thought, am I having a stroke? And so I told my wife a little white lie and said I thought I pinched a nerve running the day before, and off to the hospital I went. And I would spend the rest of the night. They basically eliminate everything else and then do a spinal tap. And if you have elevated protein levels in your spinal fluid, you have Guillain-Barre Syndrome. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, just to the journey that I took, within a week, I couldn't walk. My arms weren't working. I had gone into respiratory failure. I was on a ventilator. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even blink my eyes. They would take my eyelids closed at night so that I could sleep. Obviously, I was in intensive care. And that was in September of 2002. And by the beginning of October, my eyes became horribly infected and my right eye ulcerated, and I lost a good percentage of my vision. At the end of October, I got a pressure sore at the base of my spine. Beginning of November, I was transferred to a specialty hospital, and shortly after, the pneumonia set in. Later that month, bacterial infection settled into my digestive tract, and beginning in December, the urinary tract infections began. But of all the things that I would go through during this period of my life, losing my mind would be far and away the worst. I developed what is called ICU psychosis. And I also am one of the few people that react very badly to morphine. But because I was not able to move or make a sound, when they would give me the morphine every 4 hours, on the outside, I was quiet and still, and on the inside, I was screaming in terror because it would send me to the darkest corner of the hell that was now my mind. And that happened every day, over and over and over. And my mind shattered. And I don't have a scar to show for that, but that was far and away the worst thing that I would go through. Now,
when you say your mind shattered, I'm sorry, I'm like hanging by your every word, but these are things I didn't know, Bob. I mean, a lot of people react terribly to morphine, and I am trying to, as you're explaining that, I'm trying to think like, now, what would I do? What would I move? Or how did you communicate that? And what does it mean when your mind shatters?
I was completely paralyzed. I could not move anything. And so the term shell-shocked is from World War I, when in the trenches, periodically a shell would come across.
Right.
And it was random. The soldier had no control over it and had no control where it would land. And that just unpredictably and out of control. We now call it PTSD, but they called it being shell-shocked. And it eventually breaks your mind. and my mind shattered into 1,000 pieces. And I lost the ability to see the line that separates delusion from reality. And there were many ugly and evil delusions that are as real to me today as talking to you.
That's what I was going to ask you. You and I off air spoke on our, my PTSD from previous experiences, which are nowhere, they are not the same, but the symptoms and the things that I found myself underneath my parents' bed, right? And I didn't even know how I got there. The reasons that we go to these places in our mind may be different, but you feel the same, like you can't move or scream. I have that sometimes in dreams. Like I'll remember that almost like a previous chapter of my book, but I don't experience it in my real life, like current life, as real as I think it is, to this moment. Do you feel as though you do?
I do. It is when I get triggered. You and I talked about the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and it's about trauma and PTSD. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list for months. But when I am triggered, something triggers, and then you go into this cycle of excruciatingly waiting for the next shell to come. And it's just incredibly painful and exhausting.
Oh,
And
oh God, Bob, I love you so much, man. You just absolutely, what was it that you said? That you break through, right?
it's life breaks you or breaks you open.
Breaks you open. Yeah, you break me open. And I hope that everybody else hears that too, because this isn't a sad tale, folks. Wait till you get to the other parts. But it's so awesome that you're willing to share from this very personal, borderline intimate perspective of, well, no, it's a very intimate conversation of what you went through, just in case somebody needs to hear it. And how do you cope with those moments of PTSD?
It's difficult. You get the feeling that you're a stranger in a strange land, that there's nobody out there that will understand. So just be quiet. Don't say anything. Just deal with it. But that's exactly the wrong thing to do. And when you become unafraid to show people your wound, then all of a sudden I meet you and you get it. You understand me. And that's the gift of when I can show people my wound, then all of a sudden I find I'm not a stranger in a strange land. There's so many people out there who have had similar experiences. And you and I were going to talk for a few minutes on Friday, and instead ended up talking for over 2 hours.
2 hours, I know. I'll show you my wound. What's yours? And then, yeah. And thank you, because you gave me exactly what you said you feel. It's equal reciprocity. It was, oh man, I needed that at that time. I do, thank you. I do want to tell everyone, what I think some of the causes are, or so they say. Again, I'm not a doctor, but just so that there's a broader understanding of what could cause this. It sounds like you had no idea. You went for a run and it was rapid how it progressed.
It's just, yes, that's the MS is a slow grinding process. Guillain-Barre, the bottom of the box fell soft. And so it was a very quick, it's just, there's peripheral weakness, peripheral what would seem like neuropathy. But as I say, it's a mystery, because yes, half of the people have a viral or bacterial infection, but what about the other half like me? The one thing I do think the common thread is somebody who has gone under a lot of stress.
Yes. And okay, I'm so glad you said that, because I listen to a lot of different things before I do a podcast. I try to at least come somewhat with an understanding so that I cannot sound like a fool. Sometimes I fail, but I felt like it was such a wide array of things that could variants that could contribute to this diagnosis, and it was all the way from a flu vaccine, right? Or
I,
the flu.
I,
It was
it's,
like it was
yeah,
the whole thing.
it's spaghetti against the wall.
Right. Thank you. Because to me, I'm listening and I was like, gosh, okay, this is so strange. And then of all the things I read and listened to, stress, it brings me back to every single other disease. I mean, my autoimmune disease, the stressors, the source, and how to remediate those things. But of all of them, sometimes they just don't make any sense. And then this is the diagnosis. And so you're here, and how do you get out of that morphine every 4 hours kind of like, forgive me, and I hope I never offend, but my daughter has told me this. My daughter with cerebral palsy, she said this to me once: I feel trapped in my body. It's hard for me to say sometimes because I feel that for her. Did you feel that way?
Oh, I was entombed. I was buried. I especially, the only thin thread that I had to reality is what I could get through my eyes, because as I said, I lost a lot of my vision. And when the nurses would tape my eyelids closed at night, I was just lost.
Me too.
I was just lost in the chaos that was my mind. And it was, it sounds dramatic, but some people have figuratively said they've been to hell. I have literally been to hell.
I don't think that sounds dramatic at all, considering what was the time span between that moment and you're going for a run.
A week and a half.
Right. So that's why it's like that absolutely sounds like hell. And that's why you move me, man. How did you get off of that morphine drip situation? Tell me, like, because I'm looking at you and your eyes are beautiful, okay? And we've had some great chats for hours now, and I just met you on Friday. So how did we get here?
There's a very interesting story about how about the morphine. I had no ability to communicate what it was doing to me, and one evening, my wife just said to the nurse, "That's it, no more morphine." And the nurse said, well, no, it's been ordered by the doctor. She was like a pit bull. She was like, nope, no more morphine. She said, he has to get morphine. You don't understand the level of pain that he's in. He's got it. And my wife kept just saying no. And finally she said, well, the nurse said, I'm going to have to call the doctor. She said, call the doctor. They put the doctor on, and he said, ma'am, he's got to have morphine. She just kept saying no, and finally they relented. A long time later, I asked her, when I was able to speak again, I said, by the way, how did you figure it out? How did you know about how the morphine was affecting me? She said, I didn't. I somehow just felt it.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a left brain factor figure explanation.
Mm-hmm.
She just felt it. And then she said, I'm not going to let them continue.
Yes, Queen. And that is another thing that of all the conversations on this podcast and of all the things we talk about in the medical field, the baseline is advocating for yourself. If you feel it, it's at the very least worth talking about. But if you feel it like that. And some people know what we're talking about, right? Like those moments where you're like, no.
Well, and it's, yes, you do have to advocate
Have
because you do have to speak up. We all have a tendency to, especially when somebody is speaking in a language you're not familiar with, we
Mhm.
defer. But beyond that, also be open to that, it's interesting how people can connect. You and I had never met.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I'm a 68-year-old man. You're a beautiful young woman.
Oh, go on. No, I'm like 108 years old.
Well,
This is just a skin suit.
but anyways, most people would say, what in the world could they have in common? And yet within seconds, you and I were talking like old friends.
Everything. We have everything in common. And I don't like factor in age. I don't really understand what that means after you get your driver's license and you can vote. Like, who cares? It's just that these things, the fibers of our being, like you said, the scars, the pain that you've suffered, that you got up and you got through and you learned, you take from those gnarly situations. And instead of saying, well, this hurt me and I don't want to do anything else that's a little bit scary, like this is part of me. You take what you learned, you leave all the rest of the trash, and you just keep going. And then it happens again sometimes in a different way. And we learn and we get stronger. And then you meet people like when you called me, where I just was like, thank God I needed to talk to a human today. And he just calls me up. It was like fantastic. That is fantastic. And truly one of the many, well, one of the most important things that I live for is that human connection.
Well, and I will tell you, yes, and we both are. We're both wounded healers. That was, we were discussing, it was a book written by a Henry Nouwen who said all true healers are wounded healers. And you and I connected on that level. We're both wounded healers.
Mhm.
But it's where people make the mistake is when they have been wounded. Now it's your choice. What do you do with the wound?
Choice.
And it's, Viktor Frankl said, you have to find meaning and purpose. I have to share too, that after, I was in the hospital for 7 months. I was in therapy trying to regain function for 8 months after that. I literally had to learn how to roll over and sit up. I was like a brand new baby. It was just, and it would be about 2 years after that I would reach the level of recovery that I have today. But my mother, who was a force of nature, she taught public school in the Chicago public school system for 40 years. And when I was in the hospital, she came every day. And the neurologists were terrified of her, and the nurses loved her. Because she got neurologists, if she said, excuse me, come over here, they had better done their homework.
Mhm.
But she was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and she would eventually move in with us. And it was eventually as a patient with Rainbow Hospice that force of nature passed away. And at the same time, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a very aggressive form of cancer. And it had spread to a second location. And she was now going to face going through surgery and then the horrors of chemotherapy.
Mhm.
At that point, I know there was a lot of people who looked at me as somebody who had lost everything.
Everything. And I know that's relatable. for so many people out there where you're just like, would anyone else like to like take a piece of me? Like take another little piece of my heart. Every time you get up a little, it just hits you back in the face and you're just like walking around like an alien. I've had it where you're just like, you don't even feel like you're on the ground. You're just existing and you're going through it. And it's so bizarre and it's so gut-wrenchingly shocking.
Well, there's a line from a Sam Cooke song that I always think explains the situation. And it's too painful to live, but I'm afraid to die.
Mm-hmm.
Go live there and it changes you.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And wow, Bob, without even knowing that, remember when we were talking on Friday and we were talking about something actually different, and I related it to how I felt, during the shooting at Columbine, being there and all of those experiences and in that classroom for so many hours. And then when I left, knowing I was not going to be the same for a very long time after seeing all that I saw and all of those things. And the people kept passing away right after that. It didn't just end that day. And I kept feeling, and that was just the first time you get that, like, you just get pummeled. Just get pummeled.
Well,
And
it's
it's within that I had to pull myself out and say, either I go live my life with all of these experiences and I try to do absolutely everything in my power for other people, or the other options seem to be kind of like not at all as fun.
Well, I think again about being broken open. When I got to that point, I know people later told me, they were like, "Oh my God, you were the story of Job." And
Yes.
I always say the people who thought I'd lost everything, they were wrong. And because there was a young woman who taught me the most important thing that you have to give to anyone is yourself. When I was finally able to get off the ventilator, which is a horrible experience, but I was then assigned a speech therapist, and her name was Sarah, and she was a ray of sunshine. And so she was not only teaching me how to speak again, but to swallow so that I could eat and drink again.
Right.
And so
Speech therapy is amazing. Ava has had speech therapy for forever, and her speech therapist name is Sarah as well. She's also a ray of sunshine, and it's like right down to chewing, swallowing.
right?
Yeah, yes, all of it.
All the things that people never think about.
It's important. Mhm.
One day, Sarah said to me, "What's the first thing you're going to have when you pass your swallow test?" And I said, "Orange juice." Now that makes me sound kind of boring, but I could have died a happy man for a glass of orange juice. Don't know why. That was what, and the day that I was going for my swallow test, Sarah came up to come down with me. And so when she went in back with the technician, and they give you something to eat and drink and their x-ray in your throat to see if you're swallowing or aspirating it. And when that was done, that person went in the back as well, and I was alone. And I always remembered, I was just thinking, oh my God, please let me pass. Yeah. And all of a sudden the door opened up and it was Sarah. And when I looked up, she had tears running down her face. And the second I saw those tears, I knew I had passed. Now, we celebrated. She lifted up my hand and high-fived it. We were hooting and hollering. And when I say we celebrated, it's because we did it. But then she took me out to be transferred upstairs to my room. And What I didn't know, she ran back in and called the nurses station. And shortly after I got back to my room and was transferred into bed, 3 nurses appeared at the door, big smiles on their faces. And the nurse in the middle had a tray, and they announced it was lunchtime.
Oh,
And so I hadn't eaten in so long. And they came over and put the tray on the over table in front of me. Was going to have to be fed. And it was a few light things. Some broth and some Jello. But on the upper right-hand corner of the tray
tell me.
was a glass of orange juice.
Yes. Okay, God, more stories like this. You know when your heart just goes like, I've been waiting for you to say that. I didn't know that you made me cry, but like happy tears. Yes. Tell me about the orange juice and how did it taste?
It was a miracle.
Yeah.
The taste, the texture, the smell, it was a miracle. And every morning I have orange juice, and every morning it's a miracle.
Mhm.
And every morning it reminds me of Sarah. And you see, I have spent the rest of my life, it's be 20 years in September, working with hospice, starting devices for the disabled so people in need can get medical equipment at no cost.
Well,
And
we're
what
gonna
I-
go into that, but like we gotta talk about
Well-
that. Can we just celebrate that moment for a
Well, what I was saying, the reason why all that happened is because I want to be the person bringing the orange juice like Sarah.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you get over that threshold or whatever that boulder, that thing that's blocking you, the big monster is standing in your way, and you get that thing. I think the most rewarding thing in my experience, and apparently in yours too, is to be able to turn around and give it to somebody else.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It is addictive.
Oh yeah, terribly, actually, horribly addictive. Yeah.
Yes.
Hope and love. Yeah, terribly addicting. Truly. Triumph over chaos. And the incredible human spirit is intoxicating to me.
Yes. And so that's very simple. What's my resume? I bring orange juice to people now.
Booyah! Like the boss. I am the orange juice God. Yeah. And I still, because I'm just such a, I don't know, I just have to split hairs in a thought all the time, kind of little freak like that. I wonder what it was though about orange juice, because your body craves sometimes what it needs the most. A lot, mostly people get really thirsty if they're feeling overly hungry, they need to drink more water, or then you'll look at things, especially when you're pregnant. That's a prime example, let's use that, where out of nowhere, you're like, I'm going to eat all of those sweet potatoes. And you have no idea why. And it's weird, but you just know, and you need to consume it like a savage. I wonder if there was something, what's in it outside of vitamin C? Is it like folic acid? I need to know why that was the thing, unless orange juice was always your thing before.
No, I mean, I liked orange juice, but it was nothing special to me. When I had a feeding tube inserted into my stomach, and so your mouth and your throat all dry out.
Yeah, itchy. I've had it for surgeries, and it's terrible.
It's terrible, and it's just, and also you don't realize it just the orange juice. It's bright, it's sunny, it's
so sunny.
wet.
Mhm.
It quenches your thirst. It just for whatever reason my brain wrapped around orange juice and said that's what I want.
It's
And
sunshine in a cup. Plus it has the little bit of like an acidity, like it'll scratch your throat for you. Like, not in a bad way,
yes,
but it'll like maybe
it
scratch
wakes it
it.
up.
Yeah. Come alive. Oh, I love it. Oh, the what and this is why we have this podcast, because within, oh gosh, so many things here, it's relatable content, but also just that straight to your heart and your soul of what an awesome story, my friend. I am so proud of you. And I feel so
Oh,
deeply
thank you.
humbled to even get to talk to you, that I feel like I shouldn't even be allowed to tell you I'm proud of you. But like the divine in me, you know,
Namaste.
namaste. It's just, oh, wow. You are remarkable. So then I am also kind of blown away by the fact that you only had 8 months in physical therapy after all of that. So it was like a week from running to tomb. Then then 7 months in the hospital, right?
Well, I was in 4 different hospitals, the last of which was Rehab Institute of Chicago, which is a rehab hospital.
Right.
So I did begin rehab there, but it was learning how to move a finger.
Right.
I mean, it was basic things as learning how to move your arm.
And what do they do for that? Just because I feel like maybe one person, how do you learn how to move your finger?
It's simply it's just whatever you have. When I finally got to Rehab Institute of Chicago, I could move a little bit my left pinky. And so they would say, let me see that. Okay, let me do it again, let me see that.
Mhm.
And then it was, well, can you do the other finger?
Yeah.
And they would do things like put your arm in a sling and it hung from the ceiling. And you would just move your arm side to side like that. So there was no weight bearing.
That's important to note too, because if that's easy to do from your home with just like a sheet, right? There's no weight bearing. It's like moving in water. Why Ava loves,
There actually was a pool at RIC, and as you got a little bit progressed,
Mhm.
and they would have a therapist bring you into the pool because there's only 10% weight bearing.
So you
And
have to go, I'm sorry, you have to go back through those channels and you reroute the information through your brain, right? And
it's interesting you said that. I always compared to your disc gets erased.
you're right. I mean, that's how I mean, again, not a doctor, but that's what I heard there. Also, I mean, I'm not a stranger to hearing of brain injuries or certain things like that, or having infants where you're actually, creating those pathways in their brain. It fascinates me and is just something I could think about all day, on the ways that when we continuously learn and then create those new places in your brain, and it gets faster, you're thinking, and then if that disc is erased, to me, and I don't mean any no harm by saying, to me as an outsider, 8 months seems like a short amount of time when considering when you originally learned these things, like start with moving your pinky and your brain's got to tell your pinky to move, bro, and you got 2 pinkies, so you got to do it to both sides. Then that's fascinating that you were, it's
Well, the 8 months, that figure is because of insurance.
yes.
The medical profession is ruled by insurance companies. And so at that point, that's what I got I would go 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. When I got discharged, they would come and pick me up and bring me home, but it was all day, 5 days a week. But the reason why it stopped is because that's when my insurance company said it was going to stop.
Yep. And that's baloney. And you and I both work to fight that. We're out here every day trying to figure that out, because imagine if you don't have that. And that's why I created little wins and why.
Yeah.
We have to do these things because it doesn't make sense. There shouldn't be a cutoff, like how do you put a date on each individual who's a snowflake, right? This is how much insurance and time you get allotted to your physical therapy after overcoming something that is extremely difficult. And then you only get to do this much and then you're done. We need to work harder on that. I always say these things in podcasts. If there's anybody out there, if you're in that field, if there's any tiny little change you can make, maybe awareness is the only thing you needed. Maybe if it happened to you,
Well, that's where it would change. It's just, it's obviously somebody in an accounting department who's making a decision that's appropriate. And it's each floor in the rehab hospital had a couple of social workers whose sole job was to continuously contacting patients' insurance companies.
Oh, I've been to RIC and those people, they work.
So it's to get the insurance extended. They'd come in and say, I got you another week. Oh, I got you another week. And so it's, so yes, I guess the basic question is healthcare a right or a privilege? And unfortunately, in our society today, it's a privilege.
Unfortunately, it is. And I hate being asked that question because I know the answer and it's not the one I want to say, right? I don't want to say that. But what has made it feel slightly less painful is by meeting like-minded people who we create solutions outside of that. So, okay, we see that this isn't working. We see that you're keeping people from being able to meet their, fullest potential or even live their lives the way they want to, or be comfortable and have fun, for crying out loud. Live, get out of bed, go to the bathroom, go visit your kids or your grandkids. You have no mode of transportation or any vehicle and no one to help you get out of bed. Not okay. We find solutions. And that's where I think I derive all my hope is by just continuing meeting people like you, and we just move on together. Because if you really think about that question and that question alone, boy, I can spiral on that. I'm a fairness kind of gal, and I know that sounds silly, but I actually
think no, it sounds wonderful.
I think fairness is way more simple than most people make it out to be. But so you come out of this, you start with moving a pinky, and then you create an incredible organization. And I could talk on it because I get a little bit excited, but I really want you to, because you created it. Out of all of this, you went back with the orange juice. Right here, it's figurative, right? And you created an organization to help solve for this massive disparity.
Yes, well, it's a good friend of mine, Ed Kane. We lived in the same neighborhood. He was diagnosed with ALS. And so he used to come see me at the hospital, and then it was my turn to come see him. And our diseases taught us how important this kind of equipment is. And when his disease progressed to a point, he was prescribed a complex wheelchair. And Ed had insurance. He had it allocated up to $2,500 for a wheelchair.
Which is not enough for that.
The complex wheelchair he was prescribed was $30,000. And so he was able to take the money out of his 401k. But that led us to the question, not just even a poor person, where does the average middle-class family come up with $27,000 for a wheelchair if he had not Ed would have spent the rest of his life laying in bed.
Bedridden. And that's why I start there, because I think that the general populace, unless they've been affected directly, which statistics, and I'm not Debbie Downer or bearer of bad news, this is just data, these are facts. At any point in one person's lifetime, they will experience some form of disability. We
That's
are valuable
correct.
creatures, folks. I know that that's like that sounds sad, but like we are valuable creatures. And to not know what it's like to be someone who needs this chair, this specific one, to get through their whole day. I mean, that chair, I know which one you're talking about. It's awesome. Where my daughter needs, like, she's the activity chair that goes up and down. She needs the all-terrain wheelchair. She needs and they don't combine them like that for her age right now. There are some great ones coming out, but it's not as readily available as the one that's $30,000 so readily available. No one can get these things, and they do end up being bedridden, which is a whole slew of other issues, health related, and also just, I think, as for evolution, truly, for humanity, for growth and advancement, we are not getting better there, and we're showing no signs of improvement, and no one really understands it until that disability affects them.
That's absolutely correct. And that, again, it's not that Ed and I were so perceptive. Our diseases had taught us this.
Mhm.
And when we started questioning, well, where would a family go? And so we started looking, and there was nothing. If you are without insurance or you're underinsured, there was nothing. And in the city of Chicago, that has over 600,000 people who are considered disabled in one fashion or another,
Mhm.
we could find one little lending locker in the basement of a church that had a few canes and crutches.
What year was this?
That would have been 2015.
Oh my, I wish I knew you then. This is when I like started ideating and doing that like discovery kind of, because I met other small organizations, which just people, guys, every single person has the power to create change. But boy, if we put those churches together, that would have been a big closet. Like,
Well, it's what's also amazing was that organizations like Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Goodwill, the VA,
Mhm.
none of them would accept donations of medical equipment.
No, nope, nope, nope. No, they will not. And you and I both had to have a little chuckle on this one, right? When we both wanted to solve for an issue with used, quote unquote, repurposed is truly what it is, medical equipment, and all the red tape that they throw at you for phony baloney, no good reason.
You know
No,
what I always say? Because Ed and I were told, oh, you can't do that. You can't
me too.
repurpose. And I said, well, you can sell a used car. Why can't I give away a used cane? I'm going to give it away. Well, you can't do that. And so we were just like, we were bright enough to know you can't do that. And we just said, you know what? And
No, you
what
did it anyway.
we
See, I
did it
had to like,
anyway.
I was a scaredy cat. I hired a whole legal team and found a way around it. I was like, yo, I'm just going to be a bridge. You put it together, you guys trade, and I hope that you are good people and you treat each other well. But it's not, I can't be responsible for it. I can just provide this space for you to hang. But I love that. That was rock and roll. You guys were like, nah, we're just going to do it anyway.
Gonna do it anyways.
Yes.
And so we have no clinical background, and we just started down the road and said, well, you know what, we're just going to do this. And a quick story. When Ed and I just were starting, we had gotten this concept, and we had a cheesy little brochure and nothing else. And I saw a story on CBS Sunday Morning about a guy who had ALS. And I was like, wow, interesting. So I called the CBS here in Chicago. And I said, hey, the two guys with neurological diseases, I saw this. And I got some intern who was being kind of polite, saying, yes, sir, thank you. Give me your email. If anybody's interested, we'll get
Nobody
back
wants
to
to
you.
hear about it, blah, blah, blah. It's a sad story. Yeah.
And so anyways, I just went, oh, okay. It was kind of a pleasant kiss off. And I said, okay. And about 2 weeks later, I got an email from somebody at CBS and said, now, what is this again?
Nice.
And Brad Edwards, who was the investigative reporter for CBS at the time, said, they asked, what is this again? And for some unknown reason, he always says, to this day, I have no idea why I did that story. It's not my kind of story. He chased politicians onto an elevator. He didn't do feel-good little stories like this. And he came out to Ed's house with the camera crew, and he filmed a story about two guys with neurological diseases that had a crazy idea. And anyways, that when people ask me, when did you start? I always say it was December of 2015. That's when we started, because that gave us the momentum that allowed us to begin. And that was so important because in the following September, Ed passed away. And but he had gotten to see us get off the launch pad. And
To give back, which is something that we need to do, that makes that something that you have to, people like us, like if you can't, it's like your cup runneth over. If you can't give it back, it just builds up and it's uncomfortable. I hope you felt like that.
well, of course, well, and it was, and Ed passed away in September, and a month later in October, Brad called me, and he said, I hope you're sitting down. And I said, what? And he said, that little story about two guys with a crazy idea was nominated for an Emmy.
What?
And I was like, and he said, well, it's not going to win. The other nominees are big budget stories.
You already
But-
won. You
well,
got to be included.
Well, what it was,
But you deserve to be there. But do you know what I mean? Like so many great things don't even get that invite. That's why I have chills. Like, yes.
well, and what Brad said was, it's such wonderful affirmation for Ed's family that little story from their living room got nominated. And so, and it did. I called his wife right away, and everybody was, well, in December, exactly a year after his story ran, I was out with a bunch of friends at a Thai restaurant, and my phone, I got a text, and of course I'm trying to hold my phone out. I don't own my glasses, so I'm trying to get it out there so I could see. And finally, all of a sudden, I saw the two words, "We won." It was from Brad, and he had that little story won the Emmy. And when Brad, you could tell when he accepted it, he had no speech prepared. He was winging it. And he just said, the first person I will call is Bob. Now, a couple of weeks later.
Wait, hold on. Can I just give it a hell yeah? I just really need to, because it's the first time I'm hearing it. But boy, like from the run to the tomb to the recovery to sharing that sort of like creating something beautiful out of that and two guys with a crazy idea to like any form of acknowledgement. God, I love that. I love a David and Goliath story. I'm not calling you David here, but you know what I mean.
It is.
Like when you're up against odds and you don't even care. You don't even care. And you
I-
do it anyways, like that. That's why these are happy tears. But boy, hell yes. I love to hear it. Okay, now you can go on. I just need to
Oh,
let
yeah. Well, a couple weeks later, Brad said, "Hey, can I meet me for coffee?" I said, "Sure." And we were having our coffee, and he had come in with a bag, and he said, "Oh," but as he was getting up to leave, he said, "Oh, here, I got something for you." And when I opened it, it was the Emmy. And I said, "Oh, Brad, thank you, but there's no way I could ever accept that. Yeah, that's your Emmy." And he said, "No." He said, "The minute I won, I knew I had to give it to Devices for the Disabled. And it has become the symbol of our organization. The little story that could win."
the little story that did win.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Mm.
did. Yeah, look at that story win. Yeah, well, and thank you, Brad. I'm sorry,
Edwards.
Brad Edwards. Thank you. So many names today, in general, just back to school stuff. But Brad Edwards, not everybody who has in that position turns back around
Oh,
to people who really earned it. That's sharing, that's camaraderie, that's village mentality, that's a teamwork thing. That's what makes me tick. It's the best feeling. You already won, buddy. You all won together, but that was the gentlemanly thing to do. And I love to hear it because not everybody does.
and the epilogue to the story, Brad Edwards is now on our board of directors.
Stop, Brad. He's gonna be like, she forgot my last name. No, it's really just because I'm really tired. Brad, it's not you. I love this story, and it's so beautiful. And as every beautiful story is, it starts like this, and then I feel like the really good ones go like meow, and you're like, oh God, where is this going? You're crying, and it's sad, and it's hard, and it's scary, and then all of a sudden,
Well, it's just there's an author I like that said, "I truly believe in coincidences. I just haven't seen one yet."
I love that.
And I today, from starting out with just a cheesy little brochure, and then 2 months after the story, we started operating out of a little church in the south side of Chicago. Today, we are operating out of the Ed Kane Center in Brighton Park. We have over 6,000 square feet of medical equipment that have been donated to us. A wonderful nonprofit called Center for Independence came in to join us, and they provide physical and occupational therapy to children.
Yes, they're great.
And we now over 80% of our the people that we see are referrals from safety net hospitals like Stroger Hospital or Mount Sinai or Rush or UIC. And like Mount Sinai a year ago, January, when the vaccine first came out, they included us with their employees, the people from Devices for the Disabled. They said we were a critical community partner. They
Absolutely.
said they couldn't afford to have us close down because of COVID. And it's just, and now we are shipping equipment and starting operations in Durango, Mexico. And we fully intend to be a national nonprofit. There isn't a metropolitan area in the country that couldn't use what we do. And that's just simple. If you need a cane or a walker or a wheelchair or hospital bed or powered wheelchair, a patient lift, whatever type of hospital equipment that you need, if you're a person in need, you get that equipment at no cost.
And you should list it on Little Wins for now to get it to like the people who like nationwide, because it's free to use at no cost. And
Well,
because if we need to get it out, if there are things that aren't moving, I'll come down and I'll list it myself for you, and I'll manage the listing.
Oh,
There
thank
are,
you.
but you know what I mean? Like what you do. So in conjunction with what I did, with the same kind of like, well, I mean, crap, let's just do it. I'm like, I have no background in any one single thing, but I'm just too scared not to try. So I'll just be the dumbest person in every room and every meeting I go into until I start to learn more. I'm not afraid. I want to be in those rooms to learn more. I am here for a solution just like you. And that's why we get to do these incredible things where you meet the people who need you, who need the things that we have and we accumulate and we save. And you get to heal your own pain by helping another person. And that has truly been truly the only way I've ever found healing, is in helping other people. And also bliss, and then all this joy, and we have so much fun while we're doing it. And Mexico, yes, we just have things in our house, folks, that could really change the daily living experience for so many other people.
People
And
don't understand that.
I've been trying to tell them. Social media, podcasts, and blogs. You have a lot of things you no longer need. We don't need it in landfills. We don't need to throw it in the trash. Somebody needs it to live their daily life, and there are organizations out there who will get it to where it needs to go, and that both sides win, right? That's what's so cool. It's a win. It's a true win-win. It's awesome.
It's interesting you should say that. I tell the story. It was just about a year ago. A couple had lost their son and was devastated. And the father couldn't let go of the son's wheelchair. He left it in the boy's room,
Mhm.
and he couldn't let go of it. And they heard about our organization. And so on the anniversary of their son passing, they took the wheelchair to the cemetery and told their son what they were going to do with the wheelchair. And then they came to us, and it was an expensive Tilton Space wheelchair.
Those are great.
But I brought them out into the warehouse, and I showed them all the, we have racking multiple tiers of medical equipment. And I said, every piece of equipment you're looking at, there's a story behind it.
Mhm.
And I said, what you don't understand is your son's wheelchair is going to profoundly touch another person's life.
Mhm.
I said, you created a legacy for
It's a
your
legacy.
son.
It lives on. And that's what what you do, what I do, the core, the nucleus of the concepts truly is connecting people, sharing. It's the stuff we've been doing since we were in villages for centuries to stay alive. But it's very, very simple. You can take these painful things. And it happened the first time I ever gave one of Ava's things away. You get kind of clingy to things as a mom. You get kind of, and then you see very soon that you're going to be buried in art projects of all kinds and equipment and things that you're just going to be a hoarder's paradise. And it does have a sentimental value to you. Well, it's not like just giving it to some place where you could pick it up and not having me, you, Tekin, all these different places. The person, the story, the importance of it. And there's even more power. I believe in that energy funneled into like the things that we give to the next, where we pass them on. And solves a whole other insurance issue and lack of access, which is absolute trash, but in a really rock star, really, really powerful way. So Bob, have you heard your story lately?
Well, you know what you discovered also that I discovered is that it's not just simply keeping equipment out of landfill or repurposing things or being cost effective, all true. But I tell the story I told you last Friday, but it's the one I always share. So when someone says, tell me about your organization, this is what I tell them. That there was a young girl, we see a lot of gunshot victims at Devices for the Disabled. And there was a young girl standing and 3 bullets missed their target and hit her. And she's paralyzed from the neck down on a ventilator. 3 weeks after she was shot, her mother delivered a baby girl. So for that mother, her youngest was in her arm and her oldest was in the hospital paralyzed, and the family didn't have insurance. And the University of Chicago Hospital reached out to us, and we were able to get a complex wheelchair, and we had to put a sip and puff and trough arms, and we had to adapt it to make it appropriate for her. Her name was Tanya.
Do you do the adapting? Just because
We have it's called an ATP. He's the professional that does this. But the day we came in to bring Tanya her wheelchair, the room was crowded with doctors and nurses and therapists. They knew what was coming. And we came in. Now, the mother had told the nurses, like, she never cried in front of her daughter because she said, I have to be strong for her. So she never had cried. We came in with the wheelchair, and I walked over and I opened up my shirt and leaned out. And so she could see the scar where I'd been intubated.
Mm-hmm.
And when she saw it, she got a big smile on her face. And I said, I have my membership card.
Yeah.
And so
membership card. Yeah.
So I said, Tanya, that wheelchair is for you. And when I said those words, the mother broke down sobbing, crying. And you know what? That's something certainly you can relate to.
Mm.
Her daughter, and after she just sobbed. And then she said, because that chair new with the adaptations would have been about $40,000.
Absolutely.
They never beyond anything they could have afforded. But
in maybe multiple lifetimes, because that we're not talking about food or rent or like we're talking in addition to all, like, it's insanity. So when she finally collected herself, she said, my daughter is going to have a life. And you know what? How many people through your exchange have gotten their life back? And so you took pain in your own life. You took the experience of being a mother of a child with special needs. And you took the pain of the trauma that you went through as a young person, and you've turned it into something that gives people their life back. And it's the greatest job I've ever had. And so did you. And it is like, it's just humbling. I feel like it makes me cry because every time I get to meet someone or they call or they write a letter, and I'm sure you feel the same way. And they say, this is why, this is how it changed my life, or this is what it's going to do for my child. And I don't get to hear, I feel like sometimes I'm like, hey guys, I'd love to hear your stories because it's everything to me. I mean, with the amount of work we put into it, knowing that, oh God, please, I hope you use it. Get like breaking down all of these barriers, sometimes physically, mentally, socially, to make it an effort to make it a more even playing field with the biggest heart, and then they reach back out and they say, this is what it did for me, and I cry because I truly feel, and I told you this the other day, I have always felt I am but a humble servant of the people, and I proudly say that I'm here to serve because it brings me joy, and I know that I can, I'm kind of good at it, and you're kind of good at it.
Well, you know what she figured out that hopefully the people who are listening figure out is if you see somebody who has an issue or is hurting, figure out a way to let them help you. But if you're having an issue, go find somebody to help. And so you and I have been given this amazing gift
Mhm.
that every day we have the ability to go find somebody to help.
Yeah, and go through it together. Like that's what Johnny Immerman of Immerman Angels, that whole system of like what he created to go back through a process as difficult as prostate cancer, and to go to the beginning with someone else once you've completed it, and help them through the stages. That is like the most cathartic, healing, peaceful, powerful thing that anyone can experience today. I don't care what I would be happy to hear an argument. I think that's the most powerful form of energy, is that truly that's energy, and that healing in it. Just going back and being like, hey man, I'm here, and I'm here to do whatever. Let's help. I want to help. I have this, or maybe you just drop it off, guys. Maybe you have something and you just drop it off, and you will feel that too. But I think that from my human experience, especially in the last 2 years, people are looking for a way to reconnect. They're looking for that feeling of, it's like a gravitational pull back towards what really makes sense, and the fundamental values of just what it means to be human, right? I don't know.
Of course, it's true.
But
It's
I think they want this. They need this. It's very
of-
simple.
it is. It's all of a sudden they want to connect back to who they really are.
Mhm.
That's Thomas Merton, an author, said it was the false self or the separate self. When we see ourselves separately, when we let our ego distance us from others, that's the false self.
Mhm.
And when we reconnect back to, I am part of something, a whole. I'm just a part of the whole, which you just very nicely described.
Thank you. But that's what I felt that's what I learned when I was 15, and that terrible experience, is that in that moment I was like, wait, I've tried so hard. I said I'm sorry when I needed to. I told everybody I love them. I went, I did this and I did that. I feel really good about what I've contributed at 15. So like, if this is it, I'm not scared anymore. And I'm fortunate to have learned that at that age, because it has truly changed my whole life. But you don't have to, I mean, maybe you could just take what I just said instead of having to live like some kind of weird near-death experience to get there. I can tell you it's worth it though, to have that. Is it a mentality? I don't know. Or maybe it's just, you're just, your core values.
What it is, you discovered it's okay to let people see my wound.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. And
And
it
that's what makes you the wounded healer that you are today.
takes one to know one, my friend. You know
Hmm.
what I want to ask you, and it may be like completely out there, so just nobody click off yet. I would really be interested to hear. But when I was hearing the stories, just stay with me, that are the individual stories of Brad, the reporter, your wife, your mom in those moments, and like that intangible quality, that intangible thingy, let's just say, because it's a scientific term. The thing that had your wife say no more morphine. When your mom got sick after you had been in your condition, and I don't want to speak out of turn at all here, but I just, as another person who feels too many feelings at one moment, did you feel like it was almost more relatable having gone through your own physical condition and all of that when your mom had gotten sick, and it's just like a deeper form of connection on a whole nother level, right?
There is. And
Without that education, you wouldn't have been able to.
you see, it's people who are watching this would look at you and look at this old guy here, and they'd say they have nothing in common.
Okay, this old guy that said he's like blind, basically. You're like, okay, get out of here. You said you lost all your vision. You're like fully trained.
Well, no, I've got most of it back. So
I'm joking. I'm just giving you a hard time. Stop calling me beautiful. I'm bad. I'm hard with compliments. Like, okay.
But well, the easiest thing to say is the truth. But it's you and I got on the phone together last Friday, and it was basically a business call. And within about a minute or two, we were off. And we were talking on levels and discussing things that most people would say, you only discuss that with someone you've known a long time and have built up a level of trust. And so we do communicate with each other. I always say everybody shares their energy.
It's just the energy. It's that's the scientific word for thingy. The energy, right? It's the reporter, your wife, when she said no, your mom, and that whole, like, these moments, and then you get to give back in this moment in the beautiful wheelchair and all of those, and then this incredible organization that is now continuously giving as well. It was like, is it not a derivative of the same? It's got to be the same form of thingy. It comes from the same place. It was one single particle, maybe, let's just call it that, because it's also a form of measurement. That particle from your wife, the thing that said no, when she said
or
no.
how about Brad?
That's
He's an investigative reporter, and all of a sudden here's this stupid little
and he doesn't know
feel-good story that, and he's like, I didn't do those kinds of stories. And yet something communicated with him, something connected with him. And all of a sudden, and what it is, the profound people, they listen to that. And so he decided, I don't know why, but I'm going to do this story.
Follow it. What's the harm in the conversation? And I want everybody to hear that. I feel like sometimes they're like, I don't really know why, so I'm not going to do it. Or maybe they're scared because, like, life teaches you to be scared, and then you have to unlearn.
That's exactly right.
Right? Like you're like born not scared, then you learn to be scared, and then you have to unlearn being scared. But if you have that feeling, God, it's saved my life so many times, where you're like, I know this may sound crazy, but I'm just gonna do this right now. I'm just gonna see about it. You don't have to fully commit to it, but I'm just going to see about it. And it has saved my life for sure.
The thing is, are you open to it?
Me? Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, in general, you of course are open to it. Yes. But you see.
It took me a while though.
Of course, it takes all of us a while. But what it is, are there people like you or Brad who are open to it and connect to it and don't question it? And those are the people, again, a year later, he's winning an Emmy. That his left brain is telling him this is silly. That's not a story. Plus, they have nothing. They're just a cheesy brochure. don't do the story. And his right brain is saying, this feels right, go with it.
Just get
And
what's the harm in a phone call? You know what I
and-
mean? Just like give a little jingle. Mhm.
So it's just, and last Friday, you were open to it.
Of course. Well, it was actually, it was incredible. The timing of it was like you were placed in my life at the exact moment. It was the second I sat down in my office and I was like, I have so many things to do for kids back to school. And like, we've been chilling, just me and my 4 kids running around. But I got to my desk and was like, oh my stars. I have a job. I am in school. I have all these things to do. You know, when you're like, you're just like, okay. And my phone rings. I don't even know, because I don't always just pick up on the first ring with like unknown numbers. Learned behavior, you know, bad experiences, whatever. There was no doubt in my mind. It was like a robotic move, you know, just boom. And that's why it was that single. I don't know what that is. I know that it is in every single person. I like to call it my gut. Everybody else has some other term for it. But when you have that intangible, can't physically touch it, but you feel it like you can in like the fibers of your being. What I heard in your story is not only the triumph of your human spirit, I don't even know. I think my vocabulary fails me on this one. I don't know. You're really, you blow my mind. But also in your circle and the things that happened, because you didn't give up, right? You didn't quit. You didn't just forfeit and say, this is a bunch of, yeah, I'm going to say it, folks. This is a bunch of bullshit. You know, you didn't. And you kept hanging on. And then you went on to do all these other things. So it is just an honor to know you, to be able to share your story. And I know that there's so much in here for so many people to hear. If you feel like it's hard, if you feel like it's hopeless, if you're shocked, you're shell-shocked. If you just are looking at all these different things that keep happening and you're like, why? You know, God, I've been there, you've been there. Please hear these stories of 2 people who have been definitely sucker punched in so many different ways. And how much love and how much power and strength comes with the need to share and connect.
It's just where you find meaning and purpose in your life.
Mhm.
Every one of us is wounded. Every one of us knows pain. And you can find meaning and purpose. It's just go find somebody to help.
Yeah, well, and it's like you can't just see and recognize that you feel pain. You have to, the only way out is through. You have to say, hi, I'm feeling some big feelings. I need help. I need to talk to someone. I need to, but just to know, step 1, know you're not alone.
If you run away, it will follow you forever.
Oh,
the
it's
only
faster.
way
It's like,
through, yes, is
the only way out is through.
Yes, absolutely. You see, again, we're both speaking from experience.
But I love that.
You and I talked on Friday about the movie It's a Wonderful Life, and when Jimmy Stewart's standing on the bridge, staring into the abyss, into that darkness, and he is so hurt and so wounded. And when Clarence Angel shows up, what does he do to save him? He jumps in the river and lets Jimmy Stewart save him. And it's so profound. if you are in that moment when we are hurting, we are wounded, then go find your angel. Go find Clarence, who's going to let you help them. So every person that you and I help, they're our angel.
And they need to know that they helped me too. That's what I've always, you know what I mean? Like they helped me too. They may see it that way, I see it this way, but it's just a circle. It's equal reciprocity, that synergy, and it's the thing that could be that. What is that? The measurement of the thingy? Is it?
Ah, yes.
But yes, if at bare minimum, Bob, what you just said is absolutely true. It brings me to my knees every day, but it like, you know, breaks you down, builds you up. It's just it's a big, incredible journey that we're on. And the more people I meet and encounter like us, and then we're building this whole big tribe of individuals who are a conglomerate really of like, hey man, we're here to help you, all of you, got you in so many different ways. If I can't, I know someone who can. If they can't, they know someone who can, and that's what we do, and that's how we are going to survive, because that's how we've always survived, no matter what. Even though I'm not classically trained in any one thing, I do know that to be fact. I wanted to ask you before, obviously, I should probably let you go. Take up all your time today. We have like internet issues and all these things. I will include all the books that you reference, and also the ones you did on Friday that I already ordered. They're probably at my door right now. If you just heard that ding dong, might be here. I'll include those in the blog in case anybody would like to order those or read them. And everything about your organization and both of them. Anything else you'd like to put in there, I can get from you. But I heard you mention earlier pain in your body, and I can relate. I told you because I have an autoimmune disease that no one's totally sure what it is, but I can feel, I get pain, crazy pain in different places. And I just sort of make friends with it and do stretches and what I can. Can you, for someone who needs to hear that, what do you do for it?
Oh, that's a really good question, because yes, I've got beyond just other issues related to the nerve damage. I also have a really rocking case of neuropathy. So in the last one, it rocks me, Perry, but it's and 20 years, there's never been a day that I've not been in pain. I just look at it as it's my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It humbles me. It connects me to people who are less fortunate. It makes me understanding. And so I don't ask the question why, I ask the question what for.
What am I supposed to learn here? Yeah, why is not always the question. It's like, what's the lesson? When you have pain, is it at random? Like for myself and for Ava, I know, well, it seems like actually all my kids, because they have growing pains and they pop up wherever, and then a tooth falls out, and that's painful. Like pain can kind of just pop up like that game in arcades where the minions pop up and you have to click them back down. What's your form? Do you do massage? Do you do stim? There's all the different, I just want to know what works for you in case someone doesn't know.
Meditation works.
Love it.
Yes, meditation works. Just be aware of your body, like the cold. I mean, I live in Chicago, so there's months out of the year that the cold really affects my neuropathy, not in a good way. So be aware of it, but it's just a mindset. It's the wheel of life turns, and it stopped on you all those years ago at Columbine. and it then stopped on me. So the question is not why me? The question should be why not me?
Why not me? Who better than me is really like when everyone said, I'm so sorry to hear about, your twins and your one daughter. I'm like, remember what I told you? I was like, if she makes it through this night, I am throwing a party. I don't totally know how to care for this child right now, but we're in. Like, I'm the one that will figure it out. I'm the one that will Google my face off. I'll watch all the YouTube videos. I will cold call physical therapists until they just are beaten down and they're like, fine, I'll take you as a patient. I'm the one for that job. And I will go to bat for anybody who can't do it for themselves, because it is their right, it is their human right. And nothing keeps me up at night more than knowing what I know and knowing that there are people who cannot have basic.
Well, two comments. One is the executive director of Center for Independence that provides therapy to children in need. She was a CPA. Patty Herbst was a CPA.
Mhm.
And she had a son, Justin, who had cerebral palsy. And she took, all of a sudden, she was just, you know what, beyond a mother. I have to help other mothers out there. She left her job at an accounting firm. I'm sure people thought she was nuts. Just, like you and I, she just started down the road without any idea where I'm going.
Mhm.
But she started the Center for Independence to provide therapy, no clinical background. And they just are an amazing organization today.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. And she knows that. If you remind her, I'm a humongous fan. These solutions, people feel like so small, dwarfed, really. I felt like smaller by the big problems and seeing how it affects so many people. And you feel like you're just like a speck of sand. Then you have to just accept it until one day your fear of not trying becomes greater. And you're like, I don't care. I don't care if you think I'm silly, if you guys make fun of me, or if I have to start by Googling how to create an LLC. Whatever.
Well,
We're going to do it. And that's like, everyone can, though. I encourage more people to solve for problems.
Most importantly, you and Patty were able to show your wound and use that wound to help others.
Oh, absolutely.
And so,
well, you too. I mean, you too.
You know what? And what it is,
I'm not worthy of you. Like, you went through.
Oh, you know what? Yes, you are. But what it does is it makes you a hero, just like it makes Patty a hero.
Okay, well, that's not fair, because I was gonna call you a demigod. So look what you just did. Now look at us. All right. No,
you're a hero.
How about this? Go team.
There you go. I like that.
You know what I mean? God, I love meeting another person who just, together we do. Yeah, my dog is excited about that as well. Just go team, and namaste, because we're gonna be here for a while, and it's gonna be really fun.
Sure.
I'm just very, very grateful, honored, and proud to know you.
Oh, thank you. And the same. We just, again, 2 minutes into the conversation on Friday, you were my best buddy.
I know. I was like, did we just become? I truly think I did actually quote. What is that? Step Brothers? That's so embarrassing. I think I did just go straight in for the Step Brothers quote of like, did we just become best friends? Because I'm a grown-up professional, guys. This is how I operate business. I wanted to tell you that after it was interesting, right after we hung up, you know how your phone, whenever this update is, it just pops up something random, either from news or from a social network,
Sure.
or you weren't even on it before. Okay, whoever's listening that can solve that, please undo it. I don't like it. But more importantly, it popped up with a quote from one of my most favorite spirits truly to walk the earth. Gandhi. Every worthwhile accomplishment, big or little, has its stages of drudgery and triumph. A beginning, a struggle, and then a victory. And I actually think it then repeats itself.
Of course.
Right? And then you have like the accomplishment, big or little, and then there's a series of drudgery, and it's just like, it's called a flow. But when I saw it after, it was weird. It was like the second we had to hang up, it popped up on my phone. I was like, yeah, it is truly that simple. It's not gonna be easy always.
No, it's just
Nobody
the
said it
opposite.
was easy.
It's, as Viktor Frankl said, to live is to experience pain. Nobody is immune from that. We're going to experience pain. The question is, what do you do with the pain? That's what divides us. And you know, when you said go team, it's the team are the people who, like you and like me and like Patty Herbst,
And so
We-
many, yeah.
oh, we take that pain and we turn it into
Repurpose it.
purpose it. And me, yes, yes, yes. Just like on my canes. Yes.
Yeah, we repurpose it. Yep. And that's why, you know, I think it's just that people need to hear that. They needed to hear this whole story. And I can't believe that it is such an intimate, as I said in the beginning, very deeply personal story that you didn't have to share. I encourage more people to share with maybe your neighbor or a friend, or maybe the next time someone in Starbucks says, hey, how are you? Maybe you're like, well, not that great today, Linda. And you tell them the truth. And you know, let's just start talking to each other and connecting that way, because so many beautiful things come from that common ground.
Yes. It
I
is.
adore you. Bob, I'm coming
Oh,
downtown. I'm coming downtown next week. Can you email me your phone number? We'll do this off air, but because so that I can send you that other podcast I was listening
yes.
to. And I have to
I've told people about you and they're all like, well, let us know when we can look at the podcast. So.
Oh, I'll send it right now, but just don't send it later. But namaste, my friend.
Namaste.
Thank you for the love, the light, and the joy, the strength, and the perseverance, you demigod, that you brought to me on Friday and that you bring to so many daily.
Well, thank you, my new best friend.
New best friend, go team!
All right.
Have a good night.
All right. Good night.
Thanks, Bob.